say we get this started, right? I mean, welcome. First of all, who has never been to an event here before at night? Oh my gosh, what? Oh, this is triple exciting. Congratulations, you found the best thing to do ever. So I'm really glad you guys are here. I'm Alie Ward. I host a podcast called Ologies, which is a science podcast. And the last time I was here was March 5th, 2020. We fixed the whole pandemic by doing fist bumps and shoe bumps. We fixed it, cut it off at the pass. That's not what happened, but so I'm really happy to be back and to be back in person. We are not wearing masks, just to facilitate understanding what we're saying up here, to see facial expressions, but if you could keep yours on, we would appreciate it. That way we could keep doing these events. So just keep them on if you can. And if you're wondering why, we're about to talk to 3 experts in virology, so you'll put them on by the end of this, I'm sure. And without further ado, I would love for all 3 of you doctors to, if you don't mind, quickly introduce yourself, what you studied in your PhD, and where your postdoc is, what lab you're at. We'll start with you, Dr. Rezende.
So, hi, I'm Izabela. I'm actually from Brazil, so I did my PhD there on yellow fever during the huge yellow fever outbreak there. And then I started my postdoc at Stanford University in Labo's lab, and now I'm still working on virology, but focus more on the epidemiology and risk factors for severe disease, and also some clinical pictures that we described during the outbreak in Brazil. And I'm also working on some Rift Valley studies that, like my PI, she has a study site in Kenya, so we are also working on Rift Valley and yellow fever.
Yeah. Yellow fever, working on yellow fever in a pandemic. I will get all into that about how things can pivot. And yes, I'd love to hear from you, Dr. Singh.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Tulika Singh, and I finished my PhD at Duke University last year on studying Zika virus. So if you remember the previous epidemic after all of this, that was, when we were worried about mosquito-borne Zika virus giving, infecting pregnant women and resulting in children with microcephaly and developmental defects. So I was studying the immune responses of the mom and asking, hey, what is the protective part of this response? Why are some babies born healthy and some babies not? Now I'm here at UC Berkeley in the lab of Eva Harris, and I'm studying Zika's cousin, dengue, and I'm asking, hey, what protects us from dengue?
Okay. You get applause, okay? And Dr. Zhang? Oh.
Hi.
Oh, there
okay.
you go. Hi.
Yeah, sorry. So hi, this is Yueyuan Zhang. I got my PhD from Clemson University, and I've been studying the rapid detection for the foodborne pathogen, basically bacteria, not really virus. And then I start my postdoc in UCSF in Dr. Chu's lab. We've been working on developing rapid next generation sequencing method for the SARS-CoV-2 virus detection. And the reported method takes about 8 hours for sequencing. And we are trying to minimize the time of the whole workflow. So we want to do from clinical sample to the result within a few hours. And we've already verified the rapid method with the first case Omicron reported in US. And we are currently upgrading this method, and hopefully to minimize the turnaround time furthermore. And also I've been working on developing the metagenomic assay for the for all the respiratory virus detection. And for now, we've already built up the method and testing the method now. We are hoping, we will validate this method on the clinical lab and hopefully apply it for the patient diagnosis in the future.
And amazing. And some of your work recently has involved sequencing the very first case of Omicron in the US. And I'm wondering what that was like for you to have that kind of responsibility on your shoulders. And also, I'm going to be frank, when you realize that you've made a massive discovery on that, what kind of celebration takes place? Because it's really bad news, but it's really good science. And what was that experience like for you when you realized that you had been able to sequence that first case of Omicron?
Yeah, like I never thought that I have the chance to sequence the first one, but it's like, I would say it's like a magic. Like when we get the sample, I know like we have to like give them the first Omicron, and the Omicron definitely have like more than 15 mutations. So I know there will be drop regions for the normal sequencing method. So we do a twist of the method. We actually do parallel sequencing of 2 samples together, and we get the 99% of the whole genome of Omicron.
So you run 2 at a time, and then do you kind of fold them together, and you figure, okay, you got the first half, you got the last half. It's going to take 8 hours. Let's see what happens.
It's like, so we prepare 2 libraries for sequencing. For each of the library, we will generate consensus sequences. And for each of the consensus sequence, we actually get like around 90%. But for the first case of Omicron, we want to like have perfect genome or around perfect genome. So if we put them together, we get 99% of the coverage, of the full genome coverage.
I mean, number one, thank you, all 3 doctors, for being here tonight, because I know when it comes to virology, business is booming, obviously. It's like you've never probably been in more demand. And you know, you studied Zika and dengue now, you studied yellow fever, you've done so much work with SARS. Can you, maybe Dr. Rezende, if you could tell me, what was it like when you were studying in Brazil and then suddenly you pivoted? Did that give you more of an interest in public health and actually like being on the ground for this?
Yeah, actually my lab, when the pandemic started, we closed, like not closed, but we stopped all the research that was doing there, and we started doing basically diagnosis for the Minister of Health in Brazil. Mm-hmm. So was scared at the first time because we didn't know a lot of the virus and the disease and etc. But it was also like, it's kind of like you feeling that you're useful in some way, and you're paying back all the investment that the government is doing, like it's putting on you. So yeah. That's like, it's crazy. But like my lab was basically like like my former lab, like for 2 years, since the beginning of the pandemic, it was like a diagnosis lab. And yeah, but it's nice, like healthy, and be able to be like in this front line, not like in the hospital and attending patients, but like doing all these tests and like in the fastest way that you can do. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if ever anyone's like, what are you gonna do with that degree? You're like, this right now. Can you tell me, and maybe Dr. Singh, can you tell me what inspired you to follow this path of epidemiology and viruses? Like, did you see a lot of sci-fi movies growing up? Did you have a mentor, like anything like that?
I mean, Contagion definitely helps.
Made a lot of doctors.
That was before all of this, and now it's like, yeah, I mean, so I'm an immigrant, and you know, flying back and forth between the U.S. and India made like global health inequities really in my face, and I was like, what can I do about this? So in college, when I was like, you know, majoring in microbiology, we realized that a lot of infectious diseases disproportionately impact the poor. And so I wanted to do something about that, and that's why I wanted to research infectious diseases, is because I was like, hey, we can actually make the world a better place. And then after I graduated from college and I was still trying to figure out what I do for my career, that's when Zika and then Ebola and then Zika happened back to back. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is threatening the whole world. Yeah. And we have to keep, somebody has to be there to research this and to figure it out and to find solutions. Mm-hmm. And that's why I wrote it actually in my college, in my grad school application essay too. And I was like, hey, I wanna help solve viral infections. And now it makes a whole lot more sense. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, check that box. I think you're doing great already. Did all three of you actually obtain your PhD during the pandemic? Did you have to defend your dissertations over a Zoom? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yes. We got yeses across the board here. I will give hands here. Like, I mean, I could barely attend normal meetings during the pandemic, and you're out there like actually actively getting a PhD with like your cat in the background and stuff. You know, can you tell me a little bit about that path to getting your PhD? Is there any advice you would have for someone who's considering a career like this that you would, any advice that you would give them?
I would say don't give up, you know. One thing that's really empowering about being a scientist is that you can decide. You can say, okay, I want to ask this question, and you can figure out what is the difference that question is going to make for people and their health, and then you get to actually do it. And since there's a bit of empowerment in that, because you choose where you want to make a difference, and then you get to follow it all the way through.
That's a great answer. Dr. Rezende? Or Dr. Zhang?
Yeah, like, it's hard to say because it's a hard path. It's not easy at all. Like, you have to sometimes choose between your family and your research, or like, not family, but doing what is funny and what is like your work. But I think it's so important, and when you find your passion, like, I really like my research, my career right now. I'm proud of it. And I think when you find it, and when you were able to follow this passion, I'm not trying to be romantic here, but like, when you find it, it's nice and it's worth it. And especially if you are in an amazing lab with like people that are trying to push you and help you. Yeah, so don't give up. I think that's the same advice.
And yeah, Dr. Zhang, do you have any advice?
I would say like to think about it twice before you make the decision. And once you are sure you want to do that, just go for it. Do not limit by anything, by like gender or age or whatever. Just go for it.
Like, think twice and then go for it. That's spoken like a true scientist. Get 2 data points from yourself and then go forward. That's amazing. Now, one question I'm wondering, because obviously I know that you have probably had to be on call from everyone in your family texting you, what's the latest with this? Is it too early for me to go to a bachelorette party? You know, whatever. How big are the microchips in the vaccines? And all kinds of questions from all kinds of strangers. But I'm wondering how the last 2 years, has it maybe delayed progress on the diseases that you were studying, or has it helped advance things in virology and immunology and vaccines? Has it hindered, has it helped? Like, what effects had it had on your original work?
Okay, what I can say, like, I think most of other research stopped a little bit because we have all to focus on COVID and all these studies. But now we have such an amazing structure in so many labs. You have sequencing everywhere. We have more powerful to run PCRs, diagnoses. And I think we build a good infrastructure that now we can use for other diseases. So we indeed stopped a little bit, like other studies, I think, like at least like my experience, we stopped things for a while, but now we have like an amazing structure to run faster, probably other research and other studies. Yeah.
So you had to stop what you were working on, but you have better infrastructure for the next stuff. It was like pause, build a bunch of stuff, okay, get back. That makes sense. What about you and your experience?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I came into grad school and I was like, you're the one working on an emerging infection. You're working on Zika. And then at the end of grad school, it was like, why are you still working on Zika? We need to move on to coronaviruses. And it was a bit frustrating because we tend to be so short-sighted when we care about the popular virus when it comes to like virology research, and all of these resources are being funneled into that one thing. But I think that this overall broader experience that we're all living through right now makes the public more aware of it. Like now I'm hearing the words like viral variants and vaccine efficacy in the public, whereas those were only like in the lab before. So it's nice to be able to talk to more people about my work and to see that people are actually really interested and they care about this. This impacts all of our lives, and people see that more now.
Yeah, context definitely helps with any kind of enthusiasm with science, and so the more context you have, obviously, and now I think pretty much everyone has a lot more. Did anyone here know viral variants before this? Probably not as much, right? Exactly. You're like, back there, we got another virologist. I definitely didn't say it as much as I do now, but when it comes to looking forward to your next project, how much of, obviously, and Dr. Zhang, you're working a lot on sequencing new variants. What about the percentage of the work that you're doing now in your postdocs? What is your kind of nuts and bolts, like day-to-day work like?
Yeah, like today I was started off my day strong at 8 a.m. mentoring an undergrad in lab. He's learning a new technique, doing really well, so that's going good. Helped out a couple more people start their experiments for the day, checked on my cells, responded to emails. In our lab specifically, we're working with human samples, so inventorying and stewardship of those samples is what I was doing today. But it's a very varied life. I'm excited. There's lots of experiments, and every time I get to ask something new, and I don't know what's going to happen. So every day is a little surprise.
Yes, that's definitely been the case for a lot of people in the last couple years. Is every day is a new surprise. That's for sure. And what about, you're working obviously on SARS-CoV-2, but
Yeah, so I spend most of my time on the wet lab. Basically, I just get up and go to the lab and start working. Yeah, we do have some Zoom meetings like for discussions of the progress or like the ideas with the colleagues and with my supervisors. But most of the time, I'm working on the bench. Yeah.
You're on the bench. You're doing the work.
Yeah.
Pipettes. Do you dream of pipettes? Have any one of you dreamt of pipetting?
I've definitely tried to scan into the bathroom.
Your work follows you home a little bit, right? I'm sure. What about the differences in studying diseases that are human to human versus zoonotic? Like, has that been a pivot for you as well, or is it like you get it, and it's the immune response that you're really studying? I know these are Jeopardy questions.
I think it brings a lot of attention to zoonotic diseases, but so far my study has still been focused on the flaviviruses, which are like the Zika and dengue, which are cousins of each other. They're in their same viral family. So we're focused on that, but I think it brings up a lot more interest and potential for research in the area of environment and health. And how does zoonotic spillover play into how diseases are spread? And in fact, parts of our lab are working on figuring out how do rural areas and urban areas differentially spread disease? And there are key differences in how humans move around, and that impacts disease, and we're thinking more about that now.
Yeah, does it ever surprise you how much sociology is also involved in immunology and virology? Did you anticipate that when you were starting your work? Did you know that was a factor in public health, or any surprises there? I wonder with I imagine there's a lot of surprises. I'm just going to say there's a lot of surprises.
I came into science from the public health side more, so I was really appreciating the sociological factors and realizing that poverty was one of the main drivers, and that really made a personal impact on me growing up. So I was seeing that and learning about that in college, and I wanted to do I'm going to do direct service. And I had to work for a couple gap years. I'm trying to figure out what the gap year, it's like a lot of hard work, figure out what is a good fit for me, and I end up in science after recognizing those factors, just because I was more on the analytical side of how I wanted to approach the problem. But yeah, definitely, there's a lot of, and I think I would like to see more studies include both biological and social factors.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I would say, like, in my lab now, we have like this research in Kenya, and we find a lot of relation between like more cases of arbovirus, for example, and like poverty and all these less privileged in socioeconomic. So yeah, that's truly like, and it's it's interesting, like how all these environments are related. And
what about your individual goals in your work? Is there something that is a goalpost for a virologist or an immunologist? I know eradicating disease worldwide would be dope, and it would be so cool, and I definitely hope that happens. But when it comes to your particular goals in your work, like Dr. Zhang, do you have a goal that keeps you going every day, or a particular objective?
I can't explain the reason, but I'm kind of like, I just obsessed with the rapid detection method. Like, I think, like, it's kind of crazy. Like, people can travel to the other side of the world within 24 hours. But for the diagnostic, it takes like days. The traditional method takes days, and even for the sequencing, it takes long time to prepare library and to do the sequencing. So I just think there's better solutions. So like, I've been working on that, try to get a better solution.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to an outbreak, obviously time is of the essence. Is that a matter of computer technology catching up? Is that faster computers? I mean, are you just waiting for things to kind of sequence and render?
Yeah, that's definitely help. Like, with the help from the cloud, like computing powers, it's getting better and better now.
Gosh, that's going to be so frustrating knowing that you have samples going and the computer is like, just 1 minute, just give me 1 second. You're like, come on. And so yeah, so it's interesting to think how much sociology, virology, quantum computing potentially, like all of that really intersects to affect every single person on the globe at once, which is really interesting. But yeah, any goals in particular that keeps you going?
Yeah, like since my master's, I was working during outbreaks. So I'm from Brazil, so we have a lot of arbovirus outbreaks there. So I worked during dengue outbreak in Brazil, then kind like a little bit during Zika outbreaks there, and now then yellow fever. So, and like during each outbreak, I felt like my work was useful. So because we're always trying to help, especially with diagnosis, because it's like my former lab expertise. So we are running a lot of diagnosis during all these outbreaks. So I think my goal is trying to be useful for this public health, and I can imagine like many ways that I can be useful, but trying to help during these crazy times and be this like person that can reach out and ask and like help like in different levels during these crazy times.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, and definitely, I think the people that, you know, how fast can you respond? And you were talking about the intersections of sociology and virology and immunology. You need the right team in the right place at the right time. And I saw so many of the Zika research networks be reactivated when coronavirus came along, and all those teams of people who are working together before sort of like, we're gonna do this together now again. Like, we're gonna like ramp this up real quickly and get these results out. So that was really exciting to see that the teamwork was really like underlying all of the speed of whatever has happened in this pandemic. I think as far as my goal, you know, science is a lot of failures. And when your daily assays or your experiments, they're not working out, I tend to remind myself, like, hey, somebody's out there who's actually dealing with this infection and has disease and is having a poorer quality of life because of this disease. And they're facing huge risks. And maybe something that we find today can help them tomorrow. So thinking about the big picture of how this is going to come back to people, in terms of like making a vaccine better, making a vaccine more accessible, designing better diagnostics. These are all things that like we're pushing for. So.
Is it exciting to be in this field when we're seeing mRNA vaccines really kind of emerge? Do you feel like you're witnessing something major in history?
Yeah. You know, when I first came to grad school 5 years ago, mRNA vaccines were like a time machine. It was like, this is not possible. You're wasting your time. And nobody's gonna even put this into a clinical trial because there's not enough evidence. And like that's a really nice idea. Thanks, next.
Yeah. And now there's a pretty big sample size to work on.
So it's working out pretty well right now.
Yeah. Thanks, mRNA vaccines. Appreciate it. We wouldn't be here without you. Really,
Exactly.
Yeah, give it up for vaccine research. And I'm sure a lot of your heads are swimming with questions. We are going to be able to take a few questions from the audience. I know also we have NightSchool may be tuning in. Do we have questions from NightSchool? We may not. Lucky for you, we're going to get to focus more on y'all, which is cool. So does anyone have a question for these doctors about their work, about being a postdoc, about getting a PhD while the rest of us are just trying to cook dinner every night without crying? You had a question over here?
I do. Hi. My name's Elizabeth. Thank you for being here and the work you've been doing. This is a two-part question. The first part is directed to you, actually, Alie. It's my friend Savannah's birthday, and you are her hero. And if you knew Savannah, you'd know she doesn't really have heroes besides you.
I'm sorry, I'm the best you got. There's got to be someone better here than me, but Savannah, happy birthday.
That was my first question, is can you wish her a happy birthday?
Happy birthday, everyone. Happy birthday, Savannah.
My second question is for any one of you four who this resonates with. I think with birthdays come contemplations about aging and expectations on ages that you're stepping into, especially, I'm not trying to out your age, but when you're getting closer to, numbers with zeros at the end of them. So I think the careers you've all chosen and being a woman in science kind of challenges some non-dominant, they challenge dominant narratives in different ways. And those ages with zeros make you think about where your role is in society. So I'm wondering if you could speak to kind of any tensions that you've experienced with stepping into expectations, and maybe your own expectations, your family's expectations. It sounds like some of you are immigrants, so expectations of different countries and how that all kind of plays together and where that resides in you.
Oh, good question. So now that you are, because you're early career researchers, younger than me by much, how does age your youth while also having a PhD, how does that kind of factor into that? Into your self-perception or perception that others might have?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I recently had a birthday with a 0 in it, so I was thinking a lot about this recently, and and even before that, I think I almost made a goal out of it. I was like, please let me have my first real job after my PhD, before I reached 30, please let me have a real job by 30. And so I kept wanting to graduate before this milestone. And now I'm thinking about the next part of my life. So you're right, there is a transition here. I'm now going from being a student to having a job and performing, and it's a point of growth. I think I've learned to sort of appreciate that wow, now I've come into this position knowing something. That's a plus. and you sort of track your growth in what you've learned, but I'm also thinking okay, I didn't really make goals past this point. What do I do next? And how do I want to live my life in this new place? I just moved to Bay Area. Let's explore. Let's have fun.
Yeah, I imagine too the PhD is just such a milestone that everything after that must be whew, made it. But do you find people take you more seriously with a doctor in front of your name, despite youth?
It's just hard. I don't know. I think actually, at least for me, I live in this bubble that all my friends, they have PhD because we are so into this world, so it's so hard to make friends outside this bubble. So sometimes it's scary, right? When I think, oh my God, I'm a doctor, and I don't call my name. I don't call like, oh, Dr. Rezende. No, like so weird.
You should, man. You
But I
earned
know
that.
it's, like, I know it's like it's an important milestone in your life. And I moved to the US during my postdoc, so it's a wonderful opportunity doing research here, but it's also sad that I had to leave my country because we don't have a lot of opportunities there. So yeah, like it's interesting. It's fascinating that you can have like this doctor, this PhD, and like I'm here doing research in an incredible lab with like my advisor. She's amazing. And like my former advisor in Brazil, she's was also a woman, and she's amazing too. But it's like it's a life balance sometimes. I left all my family there. I moved here by myself, and I'm happy because I'm doing what I want to do. But I'm sad at the same time because I don't have my friends here with me anymore. But yeah. But I'm doing okay. Like.
Are you all going to hang out after this a bunch? You're like, hey, common interests. Had any of you met before tonight? Look at this. Boom, brunch date made. And what about you? Have you found, do you have a different perception of yourself since achieving this big goal for you?
It's like, well, I would say, like, sorry.
No.
So I do feel like time is important for the postdocs. Like for me personally, it's like I need to balance the time for working and also the time for the enjoy my life. So it's kind of like challenging and a kind of sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, work-life balance,
Yeah.
not easy in the middle of a pandemic for a virologist, I imagine. Yeah. Do you have anything that you use to decompress, where you're like, I'm off work, that's it, I'm playing Wordle, or I know Wordle is done in like 5 minutes though, you're like, ah. But do you like knit or jet ski or anything?
It's not that bad, but sometimes I do feel like, oh, like once I feel a failure of the experiment, I do feel, oh, like I'm so sad and I don't want to do anything today.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, also the stakes are so high that I imagine that if I mess up on my job, it's a little bit lower stakes than if you're trying to find a vaccine or trying to track down a variant. But yeah, I think you guys all deserve naps, personally. I'm not a doctor, you are, but I'm saying. Anyone else have questions out there? Or birthdays? Anyone else have a birthday?
Question over here.
Question over here? You have a birthday. I just wondered. Anyone else have a birthday? Raise your hand for your birthday. Yes. Woo! Happy birthday to anyone in here. Nice. I'm sure you're like, it's Savannah's birthday. It was my birthday too. Yeah, okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Now, so birthdays, check that off the list. Questions. Who's got the mic? You got the mic? Sweet. Let's hear it.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Alicia. So Tuesday is my favorite day of the week because that's when Ologies comes out.
That's my least favorite.
If you don't listen to Ologies, this is your sign. On that note, I'm a 5th grade teacher, and I'm begging you to do a Smologies episode on gratitudeology.
Ooh.
That
Talk to me afterward.
I've DM'd many a place and emailed, but if that could be put on the roster.
We'll work on it. Smologies are episodes that are shorter, and I take out all the times I say the F word. So they're appropriate for like my parents and children. But yes, we'll get to work on that.
Many thanks on that. But my question is, as a 5th grade teacher, it's hard to keep interest for the kids, right? I can only put the word TikTok and glitter on so many things. Mm-hmm. And you can tell that all of you have this great passion for what you're doing, and even though my kids understand, like, ugh, yeah, I get it, math's important. How did you guys, or do you, maintain interest in the tasks of your job that really you just hate? Like, what mantra do you have? What strategies do you use to get through the parts of your job that you just, you would rather not do?
Yeah. Any work tips? Coffee, regular breaks, a desk treadmill? How do you keep focused on things that are so precise and important?
Well, I would say definitely take breaks, especially for the weekend, and then maybe also do some exercise to feel better. And then after you have the break, you can go back to the work and feel energetic.
Take breaks, exercise. Remember that you're not a machine. Also, have a computer that renders slightly slower. So I guess maybe you have any. Do you guys have any tips for staying focused? Coffee. What about yerba mate? Is that a Brazilian drink or no? Yerba mate? I've had that before, and I swear it's rocket fuel. It's nuts. Has anyone ever had yerba mate? Yeah, I'm surprised it's legal, and I'm glad that it is, but I wasn't sure if that's like a South American thing, but yeah. So coffee is your choice.
Yeah. Exercise and trying to have something else that I'm doing in my life, like moving and also taking breaks. I think I really click into a task when there's something real at stake. If I'm somebody's gonna give me the answer, if I just don't do this, or I just don't do it and somebody else is gonna do it, I don't push myself as hard. I don't know what that says about me, but
you're human. Congratulations, you've passed the Turing test.
So yeah, I guess that's how I discovered that I was interested when I was given a project but not given the answer, and there was no known answer. And I was like, okay, this is a real problem.
So yeah, make the maybe stakes and context, and exercise and breaks and coffee, but not for children. Anyone else have any questions? I saw you right in. Oh wait, I actually don't know where the microphone is. Okay, I'm gonna let.
Hi.
Someone's got it.
I actually don't listen to Ologies. I'm sorry,
Well.
but I will now.
Does anyone else have a question?
So, but I came because my friend who's going to ask a question after me definitely does. But my question is sort of kind of building off of your question about keeping interest, because I've always been interested in science too, but I never knew what the question was that you were supposed to ask. I always hear that advice. You just ask your questions, and then you think really hard about your question, and then you apply for grad school. But how did you know what question to ask? Every question that I've asked was Googleable. And so I didn't become a scientist.
Yeah, how do you know if someone answered your big question? When it came to your dissertations, maybe even, was there a way that you narrowed down what your dissertation was going to be about?
I didn't always want to do research. And so, for example, but I learned one really important thing in one of my research internships that, I was stuck, and I just looked it up, and I didn't find it, and I sat down and I asked people, and they didn't know, so I just sat down again, and I was like, okay, well, nobody knows. And I talked to the PI, and he was like, what? You had this problem and you just sat down and you did nothing? And I was like, well, I looked it up, I asked, and no. And so, and then he said, do something. And the way he said do something just made a real impact on me. And so when you don't know, you try some experience, and you listen to what that experience is telling you about yourself. And that's why during my gap years between college and grad school, and that told me, hey, we need vaccines. Mm-hmm. And Zika and Ebola were happening, so I wanted to be oh yeah, I want to be able to do something about this next time. Mm-hmm. So when you do something, maybe you listen to yourself and you find what is a big enough question.
Do something, wow. Those are some big words. I might get that tattooed. I can't make a promise, but I'm thinking about it. What about you when it came to your questions?
I think not super interest, Tulika said, is read. You have to read a lot. And because every time you read a paper, they always put some, our what's the word? I forgot. Like our weakness in this work was this, and that, so we need to answer this, and that. So read as much papers as you can. And then you will, at some point, like you have an idea or like a thing that will catch you up and you'll be interested in answer this question. So we have to read. It's not like super funny and etc., but it's important.
That's great. Reading?
Yes, I agree. Like you have to read a lot of like do a lot of readings. Then you may come up with those like questions. And also, Google is your best friend. If you do not have question, that's good, right?
A question that's good is your best friend. Sort of.
Like if you have any questions, you can just Google. Like,
Yes, yeah. Google is your best friend. Yeah, absolutely. It's my emergency contact too. I think we have time for maybe one more before we release you into the night. Let's see. I'm not sure where the mic is, so just mic roulette. You got someone?
Hello.
Hi.
My question is, as women in science and in STEM fields, or jobs pertaining to STEM fields, do you, once attaining your PhD, does imposter syndrome somewhat dissipate? Does it just disappear? Do you still deal with it? Any tips for dealing with it?
Is there a vaccine for imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
It seems to affect the most vulnerable, which is awful. Yeah, imposter syndrome, another pandemic. Are there, did you have any mentors or any moments that, or anything that you used to really get yourself through that?
Yeah, I would say it's still there, because every time you're in each phase of your life, you sort of like, you look at what's the best around you. You're like, that's something I could be, and you know, I could push myself, and or I'm not there yet. But what I try to remind myself is that I'm my most creative when I get to be myself. And when I'm trying to be somebody else's best, I'm not my best. And I actually struggle there more. I exhaust myself and I persevere less when I try to be somebody else. And so I just keep believing in you, do you. And you know, yeah, just do you. Mm-hmm. And surround yourself with your advocates, because I've had some really good advocates and mentors in my career who've encouraged me to be me. And I've like convinced them. If you look around yourself and you can't find anybody who you can convince to believe in you, maybe it's not an ideal setting for you to grow. So I always, when I enter a new setting, I'm like, are these people ready to be my advocates? Are they ready to be my mentors? And then I sort of step in that situation.
Yeah, any thoughts, Dr. Zhang, Dr. Rezende, about imposter syndrome, about confidence?
Yeah, it's like you have to believe yourself, right? Like, if this is what you want, then go for it and believe yourself. You will make it. I'm not saying it's easy, but you will make it and you will grow from it.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Rezende, any on that?
I agree with the
Yeah.
the ladies, yeah.
I think also, in my experience interviewing like hundreds of scientists, honestly, like the smartest, best people have imposter syndrome, and the ones that should have imposter syndrome seem not to. So if you have imposter syndrome, chances are you're just self-aware. And you know, on that note, I know we have to wrap up, but I love a lot of you are sitting. Are there any people, marginalized genders, that work in STEM here tonight in this room? Women, non-binary friends? Yeah, stand up. Can we applaud for you? Stand up. Yep, big applause. Yay. Woo! Yes. Thank you for doing the science. And also, I want to thank my panelists, these amazing doctors. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for joining. Thank you for doing the work you're doing. Awesome. Go forth and party, y'all. We'll see you next time. Hopefully it won't be 2 years for me.